two is enough, and I make my hours on one of them. So, oh hey, we're live.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, that one totally caught me off guard. For real.
And of course the furnace just started because I forgot to turn it off. Unready. That's how we roll here.
Unready. Well, honestly, I don't think anyone can hear it. So
Okay, you'll hear it in a minute, I think. But
Mhm.
welcome everyone to the Unready Room. I'm Dan Gunther. With me, of course, is Brandi Jackola, and hi. We're here to talk
Hi.
Discovery as usual.
Yep.
How's it going today, Brandi?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Everything's
Okay.
fine. Everything's
Yeah.
fine. It's all fine.
We got some feels with this episode, I think.
Yeah, some feels, and I can't talk about it without crying. So everybody already knows that this is going to happen on a regular basis. But yeah, because there were some things I identified really hard with in this episode.
Yeah, me too, but I was also thinking about you a lot during this episode because I know
Because yeah,
how you feel about Tilly, and we'll get there
yeah,
for sure. But
yep.
yeah, I'm just going to text my wife from the basement to see if she can turn off the furnace.
That's amazing. I love that.
Oh, the wonders of the future.
Indeed, indeed. Quite amazing. Quite amazing. Oh
Okay, there we
shoot,
go.
Marge is right. I do need tissues. Ah,
Ah, amazing. I half expected Dave to like pop in and hand them.
yeah, it was kind of difficult because Spock's blocking the door.
Oh,
So
he's Spock
yeah,
blocked. Damn.
yeah.
Sorry.
That works on so many levels. I'm just.
Oh, we're a little loopy today, I think, and I like it. That's fun.
Yes, we're both tired. So
Yes, there is definitely a lot of that. So yeah, let's jump right into it. Welcome, of course, to everyone watching live and in the chat, and to everyone watching later. Really appreciate you joining us after the fact as well. Thank you so much. And yeah, looks like we've got a good crop of the regulars here. Hi, everyone. Some discussion happening. I was trying to read it before we got started. There's lots of discussion already happening about this episode. And I like the they're coming right before we started. So you never have to shush. We love the discussion. Keep it going. So that's awesome.
We do love it very much.
So the episode in question, season 4, episode 4, All Is Possible. A great title, and the last 2 episodes at least, I've said like, oh, my favorite episode of the season, and that just keeps happening because darn it if this isn't another really, really good one that had me saying that again at the end.
Agreed. Even though this is one of the most difficult episodes for me, for more reasons than what you think. But yeah, it was. In fact, after watching the screener, I kind of just blocked most of it out and put it out of my mind. And so, but we had to rewatch it with subtitles because there are always things I miss without the subtitles. And it hit me harder the second time. After which Dave's like, hey, I'll put on a comedy special. It'll be fun. And it was, but it was a comedy special by a woman who was writing this comedy special while her mother was dying. And so there's some real life stuff there. And, talking about finding the funny in the sad and the terrible. And yeah, it made me cry again. And poor Dave felt so bad. And I'm like, it's fine. You had no way of knowing, and I don't blame you. It's fine. I'm just going to go in the other room now and feel my feelings and then focus on something else. So,
yeah, no, for sure. Well, yeah, there are 3 stories happening pretty much in this episode, much like last week, and all of them kind of hit on an emotional level for me for various reasons. So Let's start with maybe the one that wasn't quite as like heart-wrenching, I guess, as the other two, which was, I think, the Navarre and the Federation story, if that makes
Right.
sense. Okay.
Agreed.
All right. Glad we're on the same page there. Yeah, so we've got the discovery still in orbit of Navarre from last week, and there are negotiations going on between Navarre and the Federation for the re-entry of Navarre, formerly Vulcan, for those who maybe didn't remember, back into the Federation. And this is kind of the final meeting. And for some reason, President Turina has asked Captains Saroo and Burnham to attend as well. And we have some sort of mysterious intestinal worm that the Admiral has come down with.
So convenient.
How odd. Yeah. So yeah, this storyline was a lot of fun. I love politics in Star Trek. Like when Enterprise was doing the like coming together of the coalition, and when Deep Space Nine does like the high level, you know, Klingons, Kinema Accords, all the politics stuff. I love that stuff. I eat it up. So whenever Discovery gets kind of higher level with that, I love it. So you know that kind of high level negotiation between the two governments and the presidents and their aides and their supporters kind of having to give the nod or the shake. I'm like, I want a series of that. Like, give me Federation politics as an ongoing story. And yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it is a reflection of the politics we currently have with the
Mm-hmm.
whole you have to appease everyone. And sometimes that means capitulating to the most extreme of
Mm-hmm.
your constituents. Vulcan purists, I'm looking at you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very difficult process to make everybody happy. But see, that's the thing. That's not what compromise is. Compromise is basically what Shran said it is. We're all unhappy. Congratulations. We've done it. We've compromised.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Or Boimler and Rutherford and their little board game. That yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Um,
Yes, agreed.
yeah, so really interesting stuff here, and of course the political theater, as Burnham says, where what's going on in the room is just all kind of a facade, and what's really happening is behind the scenes, and how you know Burnham and Saroo seem to have been brought in to kind of cut through all of that. It was interesting, and I like I don't know if I like is the right word, but it's interesting that Burnham has this kind of aptitude for the politics of the situation here. And the solution they come up with is pretty elegant as well. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the minute that she said that Saroo told Michael that they were wanted to stand there quietly and look official or whatever, I thought that's not why you want them there. That's
Mm-hmm.
absolutely not why you want them there. You know Burnham is a citizen of Navarre, and you know Saroo is great at diplomacy, and so is Michael. And it was very deliberate who she
Mm-hmm.
chose, and I saw right through that immediately.
Well, you're meant to though too, because
Yeah.
when you watch it, it's so funny, and you notice it the first time through. I'm like, that's weird emphasis on that word, and then you watch it the second time through, and it's so apparent. Like President Rillick is like, if only there was some sort of compromise that could be
Mhm.
offered by an outside party, and you're like, oh wow. And Turina does totally the same thing with Saroo. And then later on, Rillick was like, well, the Navarre delegation says that the committee has to have a citizen of Navarre on the committee. And I'm like, come on. Like she's conducting her orchestra again, and you know, just like making sure that the what was it, the flute solo comes in on time, basically.
Yeah, very much so. it's actually kind of fun to watch Rillick playing the piece. Well,
Mm-hmm.
not playing the piece, conducting the piece, and uh, it's. I do love how Turina is absolutely acting differently. That the words that she's saying are not the words that she wants to say. It's obvious to me, and is probably obvious to most of the viewers. And I like how they both have to be so careful as to not say anything specific that's going to get them in hot water with the people that they're trying to serve.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like when it's like degenerated into this whole thing, and it's like, well, I guess we have nothing else to talk about, and this is a big old failure. And Michael goes, if I may. she's like watching and listening, and she's like, I gotta break in here, or this is all gonna go to crap. So I
Mm-hmm.
really love that part. She's not shouting or anything. She's almost quiet about it, and just says, if I may. And then that's what starts the process that gets us to the end. Yeah, there's a lot of great Saroo and Turina moments,
Mm-hmm.
which makes me
Absolutely.
very happy. Apparently, her way of flirting with Saroo is sending him Kelpie and tea at a diplomatic meeting. Very,
Yeah.
very Vulcan.
That was really sweet.
It was sweet.
In the back of my mind, I'm gonna always have this question unless it gets definitively answered at some point, which is, was the chemistry between Saroo and Turina in season 1 in Unification 3, was that like planted by the writers and the director to eventually become this, or were they responding to the obvious chemistry between them and the fan response to that chemistry and saying, that's a good idea, let's move in this direction? Because it certainly seems that they're on the path to becoming an item of some kind. So,
If they aren't
you know.
already. I mean, she did
Mm-hmm.
ask him to join her for tea.
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 I always
Mhm.
put my little extra name in quote marks between Dan and Gunther, but I had to use brackets this time so that I could put the quote marks around T.
Yes.
Because yeah.
Yeah, no, my personal feeling, and I don't know, because I don't know, I've never researched this online to find out if there is a definitive answer from the production team, but I feel like they weren't exactly planning it, but then when they got Doug Jones, and I'm afraid I've forgotten the actor that plays Tarina. I know her name, but it's just 404 file not found in my brain, as per
Yeah.
usual. And I think they saw that and they decided, oh, this will be fun to build on in the future, because they knew they were going to do more stuff with Navarre, and they knew they were going to have Tarina back. So I think they saw it and they decided, hey, that's great, let's incorporate that. So kind of like a happy
Mm-hmm.
accident, but saw it as it was happening and started making plans for it.
That's kind of my guess as well as to how this all went down. And it's Tara Rosling, by the way.
Thank
Um,
you.
no
Thank you.
worries. And the reason I wanted to bring this up as well, and this is kind of going way out on a limb and like almost conspiracy theory-ish, but not really. But I remember that she was supposed to be there for a certain number of days at STLV this past summer, but they brought her back to film some extra stuff after main filming had wrapped for season 4 of Discovery. And I'm wondering, like, did they think of some interesting Turina Saroo scenes to kind of pepper in the season or something? Like, will we see, I'm assuming we'll see more of her, but like, do any of those extra scenes involve Saroo somehow? And like, the kind of like, giddy person in me is like, oh, I hope so. I really like those two together. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, actors often have to return to film pickup scenes for television, for movies,
Mm-hmm.
what have you, so that's not an uncommon occurrence.
Not at
But
all.
I'm hoping it's for the reason that you think it is,
Yeah. I'm
because
hoping they're like, let's add more of these. Bring her in.
and I hate saying this phrase, but it's the popular word for it now. I'm shipping them so hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I ship them. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. On their little ottomans and going for tea and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, those ottomans. I really loved those ottomans because they were ergonomically designed. You know,
Mm-hmm.
depending, I mean, like even Saroo was able to sit on one without too much trouble because it's sort of like remember when ergonomic chairs became a thing in the 80s? Dan, you're too young for that
Oh no,
probably.
no, I
But
remember those. I remember those
yeah,
horrible things. Sorry.
but it's kind of like the same design because it's got that cushion in the middle that's smaller and taller, and then it's got
Mm-hmm.
like the surrounding cushion, and so you're kind of kneeling on it and your butt sits on the round part in the middle. So I would actually like one of those. I think that it would be very comfortable.
You know, it's funny, in a roundabout way, this is the second episode in a row to involve Kelpian buttocks, either in dialogue or in set design. So there you go.
Who knew? Who knew this was going to be a
Yeah,
theme?
there you go.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, yeah, this is a big episode, and I've seen online, and Bruce kind of ranted a little bit about this in the podcast, and I totally agree. People online calling this a filler episode, which, like, I don't understand, because in this episode, one of the characters makes a huge life choice that has repercussions for the entire, season or series going forward. uh Navarre returns to the Federation. Like, this is the furthest thing from a filler episode. I don't know. Like, I guess it's because it doesn't involve the big anomaly plot, but that's not the only thing going on this season, and I would contend not the biggest thing to happen in Discovery anyway. Discovery, as I've said, is a show about the characters, and the characters in this one make a big leap forward. So I don't understand the filler episode appellation for this episode at all. This or the last episode either.
Yeah, and I can see why they would feel that way, but I disagree. I'm in the
Mm-hmm.
same camp with you, Dan. I feel like there was a lot of progression, a lot of opening up of things that are going to have repercussions later,
Mm-hmm.
like the therapy stuff with Book. And you know, frankly, I've been feeling like this since the beginning of the season that who counsels the counselor?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And yeah, so I'm waiting for that to become a thing because he's tired. Wilson Cruz is an amazing actor, and he is communicating this without being outright communicating this,
Mm-hmm.
and he does it so freaking well. And I don't think people give him enough credit sometimes
Well,
because
listen to
yeah.
our episode of Positively Trek that comes out on Tuesday, because I have a lot to say about Wilson Cruz's acting, and it's
Mhm.
all good. Trust me.
Mhm. I have no complaints about him in any way, shape, or form. He is a magnificent human being, and I just really appreciate what he brings to Dr. Culber. He's, you know, I understand how he feels in some ways about being the one who's always giving and not necessarily receiving what he needs because he's the giver.
Mm-hmm.
That has happened to me more than once, and it's very draining.
Mm-hmm.
So I can only imagine what it's like for him being a therapist as well.
Absolutely. And yeah, the volumes he communicates in his
Mhm.
face in that moment when Book says, do you do this? Do you have stuff you need to wipe away? And he says, well, sure. And he's taken aback by it. He's like, well, sure. He said, do you want to talk about it? Someday. And it's
Mhm.
just like, oh, it's like one part thousand yard stare, one part just like totally surprised by that moment. And pain, and it's so good. That moment is just incredible. The I don't even know how to put it, but yeah, the volumes that his face is screaming to the camera, so good.
And when he's telling the personal story of the funeral, well, I wouldn't even call it a funeral so much as I would call it a wake, but he of course calls it El Muerto Parado, and which basically means death parade, but which sounds awesomely morbid. I'm just like, death parade. I kind of like that. But I love that they brought some Puerto Rican culture into it because Wilson Cruz is Puerto Rican. So yeah, it's just I appreciated those touches.
Yeah, and genuinely so. Like I've seen online, and I'm not Puerto Rican. I don't have any connection to that culture. I don't know very much about it, but I've seen people online who are Puerto Rican just overjoyed at this. And I feel so happy for them to get that representation. And, my mom's side of the family is North American native. And I remember being so excited for Chakotay and then just not seeing anything of how me or my family or any of them thought of themselves in the Chakotay character. And then of course finding out years later the kind of sham background that the researcher had put into that character and stuff. To see that genuinely done with someone who is of that descent, who's obviously informing the writing and the obviously of course the acting of it, and just coming across as so genuine and stuff. I'm so overjoyed for the people getting that representation. That's awesome, and yay, more of that. And Discovery's been doing that from the beginning, and just to see that continue to kind of go forward with different groups and different people, and I love it. It's so good.
Me too. I just the writers are very good at what they do. Even when they break my heart, they break it in a very smart way. So, yeah.
The other thing that I noted when we were talking in the podcast about the whole thing with Book and Culber is I just, on some level, I love that it's two men that are having this frank exchange of emotion and dealing with this grief and stuff. And it just seemed noteworthy to me, because that's not the like typical way that we see that happen, so I like that they're both in touch with their feelings and able to communicate that eventually. And I just, something about that was like, I don't think I've ever seen this on television before quite like this. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
And not only that, a Black man and a Puerto Rican man.
Yeah.
And a gay Puerto Rican man. So there's diversity just busting out all over in there.
Absolutely. Definitely. For sure.
And they just played it like there is nothing wrong with this. This is normal. This should be normal. It isn't normal yet, but this should be normal.
Absolutely. Was there anything else with these two that in this part of the story that we wanted to talk about before we move on to probably the A plot, I guess, of the story?
No, I think it's time to go there.
Oh boy. Okay, here we go. So Tilly, as we've seen over the last few weeks, has been having some issues with finding her place and feeling kind of out of sorts and not really comfortable with what she's doing. And she's been trying to break out of her comfort zone and all this stuff. And Culber suggests that she go on this team building exercise with a group of cadets. Kovich is looking for a volunteer to lead this. And Tilly goes and takes Adira with her and leads these cadets and goes on this mission. And I guess before we get really deep into that, I want to talk a little bit about Adira and Gray at the beginning, because we didn't really touch on that in the podcast, and I kind of overlooked that. I love this scene with the two of them. And one of the things that just brought a huge smile to my face was when Gray was saying that he's going to go to the forward lounge, and Adira says, "You don't know anybody." And Gray says, "I'll go in, say hi to somebody. Now I know somebody." And it's just like, oh, that's so awesome. I love that. That was really nice.
Yeah, right there. That's the difference between introverts and extroverts.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
I was identifying a lot with Adira in this episode and the way that they reacted to things. It's like this whole, go introduce yourselves to the cadets. I would have done the same thing that they did, just walk over there and just kind of feel awkward and then just fall into line beside them. That's exactly what I would have done at their age. Probably even now I might do that. So, yeah, it just, it's like they don't, well, and Tilly touches on this, they don't believe what they're capable of, even though they are capable of a lot. There's certain social things that they have not figured out yet. And that's a tricky, not necessarily fun path to navigate.
Mm-hmm.
And Tilly knows what that's like.
Yeah.
She's far more outgoing than Adira, but also Adira's still a teenager, and Tilly can identify with that same feeling when she was a teenager.
Yeah. Absolutely. Before we go on, I'm just going to highlight a particular comment and hopefully put everything to rest here. Fingers crossed. Adira goes by the pronouns they, them, and I've messed it up in the past. So, forgiveness for people messing it up. But once you've been told, Adira is a they, them. Gray is he, him, and the actors. Blue Del Barrio is they, them, and the Ian Alexander who plays Gray is he, him, or they, them. So there you go.
And Sam is also they, them.
Yes, absolutely. So Sam is speaking from a place of authority here. So please, everybody, listen to them. All right. Okay. So one thing that struck me in this as well, especially watching it the second time through, was that Adira was always meant to be with the group of cadets and not going as Tilly's aide. And I feel like that should have been made a little bit more explicit to them early on, because it's a little bit of an awkward moment. But like even at the very beginning, when Kovic says, "Why don't you go over and introduce yourself to the other cadets," he says, and Adira goes over, and Tilly says something like, "Oh, I'm really glad I was able to bring Adira. They've been having some difficulties lately." And then Kovic responds by saying, "Yes, all of the cadets have been blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, oh, they're already grouping Adira in that group. And I kind of wish that they'd been a little bit more informed to begin with, than kind of just like, "Oh, this is awkward. I'm with them," and not, okay,
I think that was purposeful, for one
Oh, for
thing.
sure.
I think also because this was Kovic looking for people to take these kids out, and that was why Culber suggested that to Tilly. But he's also there, and he's probably put these teams together. Now, Kovic has been referred to as Dr. Kovic, and though it has not been explicitly explained, pretty sure he's a psychologist. So he's doing all of this in a very specific way for a very specific reason. And none of these particular things were an accident, save the actual shuttle accident. Like all of those people being put together, those 3 other kids and Adira, that was no accident, in my opinion. He knew exactly what he was doing.
Absolutely. These cadets are interesting and, of course, come from all kinds of walks of life. And I liked the callback to last season in that the one human cadet, she's from Titan, which was the research colony that was attacking Earth in the episode People of Earth, before they found out, oh, they're human as well, and there's been all this big, huge misunderstanding. She's from that same research colony. That was a nice little subtle callback. I really liked that.
It was. And it's interesting because these kids, the reason I say that they're put together for a reason is, one, you have the girl from Titan. I think her name was Val, if I remember right. I can't remember.
Yeah, Val.
I should have written. Thank you. I should have written all this down, but I didn't. So you have her, who had never seen a non-human before leaving that colony and coming to Starfleet Academy. We have an Orion boy who is obviously facing all kinds of racial prejudice just for being an Orion, because people apparently, even in the 32nd century, still judge an entire race by the actions of a few. And then you have our Tellarite, who has been harmed by the Emerald Chain and therefore sees all Orions as enemies. That's no accident that the 3 of them are going to have to work together.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot there. And of course, one of my favorite lines of the episode is where Tilly says, there is common ground here. You know, if you give yourselves the chance to explore it, is kind of the
you have to talk to each other.
Exactly. And
you have to talk to each other.
Absolutely. And you know, the obviously the aim of the exercise wasn't to have them in a dire emergency in which someone dies and, you know, all of this. But at the same time, it really pushed them to come together and have to do that to survive. So that was such a great story, and just such an allegory for so many things that are happening today, where, you know, people just don't even attempt to find common ground with someone who is different from them, or someone who is raised different from them, or, you know, it's just, you know, they look different from me and therefore yada yada yada, you know. And I just really liked that lesson. Like that's Star Trek. That's the Star Trekiest Star Trek that ever Star Trekked. I don't know how else to put that.
No, I agree, because it's not until and Tilly's doing her best and being so beautifully awkward, and I just thought, oh my God, this would be me. This would be me on a training mission with a bunch of cadets. This is me. And, you know, trying so hard to make everything exciting. Is that a new life form? What? Amazing.
Anyway.
Yeah, that is so me. But it's not until they have no choice. Basically, Tilly is gotten to the point where she's like, I'm tired of your stuff. Knock it off. And you know, we have our Tellarite just laying into the Orion about the Emerald Chain and what they did to his family. And Tilly says, have you ever asked him about his family? And she says, tell him who your father was. And he doesn't. I think it's Adira that actually says who his father is. And you actually see, even through all of those prosthetics, some remorse happening on the Tellarite's face.
Yeah.
Realizing that he had misjudged because they didn't communicate. They didn't bother finding anything out. They didn't talk. People need to just talk. Not shout slurs at each other. Just actually talk and find out about each other. And you're always going to find out you have more in common than you don't.
Absolutely. Total tangent but I
love tangents.
I just want to highlight this because TJ, I saw you comment this somewhere else on Facebook too. And I just think that needs to be shared with the world. That's one of the funniest things I'd read this week. So thank you for that.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that.
So good. I also like just the way this episode is put together. Like, it's just a very well produced episode. The pacing, I think, is really good, and it's always a good sign when like a question pops into my mind and the episode immediately answers it, and like knows that that's they're in control of the narrative enough that they know what someone in the audience is probably thinking, and they want to like redirect you or something like that. And I love that. So the Orion cadet, he says, is like when the emergency's happening and they crash, he says, is this all a simulation? And then he looks over at the dead lieutenant and says, a holodeck exercise. And that's exactly where my mind went, was like, is this real? Is this just a test? Oh, but there's the dead lieutenant. Oh, but it could be a holodeck. And then Tilly's like, no, this is real. And I was like, okay, well, that answers that. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's just nice little piece of writing there to kind of guide you as the audience into what people are, because Star Trek's pulled this kind of stuff before, right? Where, oh, this was all fake. No, this is real. I like that.
Yeah, it's definitely, well, that's, I honestly, I didn't really think that it was going to be that, because this is the first new class at Starfleet Command in a really long time. Starfleet Academy, excuse me. And I thought, no, they're not going to do that to cadets who have just started. That's cruel. That's cruel. That's something that they do in your senior year.
Yeah. But for the average person out there, you know, who's watched a lot of Star Trek, they're thinking of the Kobayashi Maru. They're thinking of the Ask Not simulation with cadet from
Was
with
it
Pike.
Sea-Doo? I can't
Cadet
remember. Oh my gosh.
Sea-Doo, yeah. Thank you.
Okay. I just like, I hope that's the right name.
I'm pretty sure it is. I had it in my brain, or and I thought I'd get to it before I got there in the sentence, but I didn't. So thank you for that.
That's fine. I'm shocked I remembered it, frankly. So,
but yeah, so I was like, yeah, you know, it could be, but they very quickly just, no, it's not. And I appreciated that. And yeah, Tilly really pulls it together and does a lot of good as their leader. And of course, when the time comes for someone to have to be a distraction in order for the cadets to be able to be rescued, of course Tilly's going to be the one to do that, because that's what a leader does in that situation. And that whole scene, that was really well done. I think yeah, the visual effects are really great in this too.
they really, really are. I do like how Adira is the one trying to signal the ship, and the rest of them are basically just watching Tilly practically get mowed down. And they're like, she's not going to make it. We need to fire and distract him. So they start firing. They weren't ordered to do anything. They were working together immediately, and they got the job done and kept Tilly alive long enough for them to get transported off the planet. And yeah, it's one of those things where there were people who were asking, was that part of that like new VR AR wall thing? No, they filmed that on location in a very snowy, cold place. So that
Yeah,
was
well,
not.
they film in Canada, so it's
Yeah,
10 months of the year it looks like that. I
yeah,
exaggerate, but not by much.
it's the same quarry that I'm sure that we've seen in other episodes. So it's kind of like Discovery's Vasquez Rocks. That particular thing. And I think Will Wheaton is the one who said that in the latest episode of the Ready Room. So
That's funny, because speaking of the Vasquez Rocks, the view outside of Turina's little sanctuary there, the rocks of Vulcan, there were some nods to the Vasquez Rocks in those formations there, which have stood in for Vulcan before. So, you know.
yes. Oh, and M is actually bringing up something I was going to mention anyway. We see the return of Parasitic Ice.
Yes, absolutely. That was interesting for sure. Yeah, I had that in mind as well, watching that. That was that same phenomenon,
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
So in short, yes, we did notice that. And we were going to bring it up, and you beat us to it.
Nice job.
Yes.
Yeah, they had very good aim. I like that. Just about every shot landed, as far as I could tell. That was nice.
Well, they were kind of big things, so
Yeah, hard to miss, probably, I would hope. So
they kind of reminded me of the land Muto in the what was it, 2014 Godzilla movie. And they also reminded me of some things that I've seen in the Silent Hill video games. So needless to say, I was terrified of those things and did not want Tilly to get killed. Not that I thought that she would, but yeah.
Yeah. I do have to say, and I figured that this wasn't the case. This wasn't what would happen, because I think I would have seen much more outcry on the internet about it. But I did get there was a comment on a post in the Positively Trek discussion group, and I hadn't seen the episode yet, and it said, I'm sad we won't be seeing as much of Tilly anymore, or something like that. So I was like, oh, darn it, I don't want to see that comment. So I knew something was going on, but I was like, well, they're not going to kill her off, because that comment would have been much more emotional, I think, than, oh shoot, that's a shame. So
yeah,
which I guess we could move on and talk about that, because Kovich, in a moment that I loved, actually, when he says, given, I'm going to paraphrase, but given the experience that you just went through, I imagine an offer to teach at the academy would not fall on receptive ears. Nevertheless, it is there. And her face just like, what? I love that. That was such a great moment.
It was a great moment. And I felt like the moment that she was going to go on this mission, I thought, this is the thing. She's going to figure out what she wants to do. And the thing is that it's not going to be permanent. She says in the episode that it wasn't forever. Mary Wiseman said on the Ready Room that she will be back. And so, and I get that, but for me, Tilly is my first time feeling represented in Star Trek. And so it was really hard on me, especially that conversation that she has with Michael, which is filled with a lot of beautiful moments, and them talking about the first time that they met, and her trying to tone out Tilly snoring and then just changing the frequency back because she kind of got used to it, and just all of these things. And when Tilly talks about how when she got her Lieutenant Pips, it was the worst day of her life, because she realized that all of this, everything that she'd done up to that point, wasn't necessarily what she wanted to do. Her mother wanted her to be a diplomat. Tilly didn't want to do that. Tilly wanted to join Starfleet. So her mother switched her focus to Tilly has to be a captain. And that's what her mother's been pushing her into all of this time. And so she's been pushed into things her entire life. And just believing that this is what she wanted, until she got that lieutenant rank. And then she realized, is this all there is? Is this all there is? And she says the thing that just broke my heart the most, because I know how it feels so deeply, is when she says, maybe I just wanted to be seen. And I know how that feels, because my upbringing was atypical at best. We're just going to leave it at that. And so often I just wanted someone to see me for who I actually was, instead of this particularly cultivated appearance that I didn't want to have and didn't know how to break out of because I was a child. And so I really feel that so deeply. And so that made it easier for me to accept that she needed to go off and do this, but at the same time, it just brought up a lot of stuff for me that I have been thinking about and dealing with since this episode. And I really blocked out a lot of the first time that I watched this episode. and I just wasn't ready to deal with it. And then the second time we watched it, which was the day it was released to everybody, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I'm still processing that. And I will be for a while.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. There's so much at play with that scene, and yeah, you bring up some really heavy stuff for sure. And I feel like, man, did they ever dig down to the roots of this character and just really figure out what Tilly's all about here. And just brilliantly acted by Mary Wiseman, of course, as well. And I love that it's Burnham and Tilly in that room again, like all that full circle thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was yeah. And I mean, like she said, it's not forever. I'm assuming we're gonna see less of Tilly than we did before, though, which
yeah, we will. And I don't really know why. I don't know if that was something that was written into the script because she had other commitments, or whether that was something that they actually plotted out as part of Tilly's character development. I'm really not sure. They didn't really touch on that on the Ready Room, so I still don't know for sure on that. But yeah, it's it's hard when the one person that's ever made you feel represented in Trek is not on for a bit, because she's been such a big part of everything since season 1, and now I'm not going to have that every episode, and that is hard.
Yeah, no, I understand that. That's I don't know what to say. That's brutal.
There's nothing you can say. It's just, I have to deal with it.
Yeah. I got into this a little bit on the podcast with Bruce, and I was trying to like find a pattern, and I was like, do we lose? And I mean, we didn't lose a character, like it should be noted, but I was like, do we lose a character in the 4th episode of every season of Discovery? And it's not quite. It falls apart, actually. Season 1, episode 4, Landry gets killed by the tardigrade. Season 2 doesn't really count, but I'll come back to it with like a little like honorable mention. And season 3, I thought it was episode 4, but then I looked it up and it's actually episode 5 is where we lose Non. Non leaves the show. So I was like, shoot, that makes it totally fall apart. And season 2, episode 4 is the episode where Tilly disappears in the cocoon and gets pulled into the mycelial network. So it's a little like kind of honorable mention there, but I was like, that's not enough to be a pattern yet.
Right.
But we'll see in season 5 if somebody goes on sabbatical in episode 4 or something and be like, there's something there.
Yeah, it's possible. But yeah, we haven't seen the last of Tilly, and we haven't seen the last of Mary Wiseman. And I think that there would be mass revolt if that did happen.
Yeah. So just some of the comments I've seen online, and it's hit a lot of people really hard.
And that actually warms my heart, because I loved Tilly from the start. And it took me a little bit of time to realize that it was like watching myself in a lot of ways, because of her awkwardness, her strange way of thinking. This other alternative that I had for what my middle name would be is something that she says to Culber when they're having their therapy session, and he's like, well, I think you should just clear your mind before you make any of these decisions. And she says, that's just it. My mind doesn't clear. And oh my God, do I know what that's like? Because that's it's always on. It's always on. It's always going. It doesn't ever shut up. No. And sometimes that is exhausting.
I hear you. I want to highlight a comment by David, which is really good here. Tilly no longer wanting to be on the command track reminds me of people who get law or medical degrees that discover they hate being a doctor or a lawyer. I just happen to have this on the desk beside me. This is my Alberta Permanent Teaching Certificate. Ask me how often I use that in the current jobs I'm in.
Not at all, is my guess.
Yeah, I don't enjoy teaching. It's something I just have to keep admitting to myself when I'm like, maybe I'll give that a try again. Man, I do not like it. Yeah. So that's frustrating. That's my degree and my area of expertise. Darn it. I'm turning 40 next year, and I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So,
honey, I'm 48, and I don't know what I want to be when I grow up because I have never figured that out. There are things that I thought I wanted to do, and then there are aspects of those things where I'm just like, okay, but yeah, can you really do that over and over again? Like acting was something that I wanted to do, and yes, I love acting. I love all of that. I love becoming another character. It's fun, but the whole process to get to that point, it's like you have to prove that you can do your job over and over and over and over again. That I can't do. That would destroy me. So I don't do that. Improv comedy is a nice backup for that because it is acting without needing really the permission of somebody else. You just say, no, this is my improv act. And then you find a place to do that improv act. But I haven't done that because, we're still in a pandemic. But
yeah. TJ, technically yes, but you can define it however you want. So I apparently grew up at some point, but I do podcasts about Star Trek and build Legos. So that's my version. And I'm okay with that.
I spend most of my Sundays playing video games. So, and you guys can't even see all the collectibles I have, all the action figures, the Funko Pops, the little stuffed animals. There's my Spock head over there. There's my R2-D2s. There's my Squirrel Girl action figure. I mean, it's just, there's this whole thing. I can't remember. I want to say it's in the Bible or something like that. And it's called the putting away of childish things. Hey, no, I'm not ever putting away my childish things. And here's why. I want to have that joy of being a child with me forever. And I don't think that that's wrong in any way. I can be mature and still have childlike wonder. So anyone who tells you to put away childish things can just go themselves.
I mean, anybody who doesn't have these and fly them around every once in a while, like, come on.
Oh, I've got my Enterprise Eagle Moss over there, but it's too far to reach. I was just like, just right across the screen.
I've got
my
so
Discovery's
many
in
of
the
them
other room.
right in reach here, and yeah.
Yeah, and I'm waiting for that. Actually, I think it's out now. The Discovery 1031A Eagle Moss model.
Ooh, yeah.
Gotta have that.
Absolutely.
So pretty.
I want the Cerritos. Oh,
I've already pre-ordered it.
Of course you did. I don't want to speak ill of anybody. I love Eagle Moss. I had a bad experience with trying to order something from them lately.
I know the advent calendar debacle.
Oh, I'm still but anyway.
Anyway. Have you reached out to the customer service again since receiving the wrong one?
Okay. Yeah. They said send a picture of it and we'll send you a shipping label, and I did, and they haven't yet. So it's been a couple days now. So we'll see. It's the weekend now, though, I guess. So.
Yeah, and they're a relatively small company comparatively, So, but honestly, whenever I've had a problem with them, they've come through and made it right. So.
Oh yeah.
And I haven't really had that many problems.
That's good. Yeah, they're a small company, and I know Ben Robinson. So no, I'm just kidding.
I don't know who that is. I'm sorry.
Oh, he's the like head of Eagle Moss.
Okay.
All that stuff. I think I don't know exactly where he sits, but he always handles all the Star Trek stuff. Apparently. Anyway, all of that aside, yeah, I guess the biggest takeaway is Navarre's back in the Federation. Burnham. I did love that her unique position just fits so well with that. Like, she would literally be, and I hadn't thought of it, but she would be the only person who is both a citizen of Navarre and a citizen of the Federation, until, of course, now that Navarre is back in the Federation, but up until that moment, right? Because there are probably no Vulcans or Romulans in Starfleet at all since, they left a century ago, kind of thing. So Burnham really is in a singular position there. And I like that they used that to their advantage here.
Agreed. I liked that as well. And I liked that, well, see, in the same way that Rillick could not allow an exit clause because then everybody would want one, Burnham is not going to be the only, well, she's going to be the head of the committee that reviews things from time to time, but they're going to set up those committees for all Federation worlds. So yeah, it's one of those things where if it's gonna be here for you, it's gonna be there for everybody. And so that was the smart way to go about it, because that way there's no favoritism showing. They don't look weak. Everybody gets what they want, and so forth.
Yeah, I like that. So yeah, Navarre's back in the Federation. Tilly is teaching at the academy. And there's some things happening between President Turina and Saroo. So
excited. They getting it. They getting it. Get it while you can. Who knows when they will be back at Navarre.
I just want to see, like, in some future, version, Saroo and Turina standing next to each other doing the, like, 2-finger thing as they, like, as they attend some diplomatic function. I'm just like, that's so cool.
It's like, oh my gosh, it's the equivalent of holding hands. Isn't that cute? Except it's more than the equivalent of holding hands, but anyway.
Absolutely. So final thoughts, both from you yourself and the fine folks in the comments on this episode, All Is Possible.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Let's just get that out.
You killed me. You killed me.
You broke Brandi. Oh man.
Oh my god, that's never leaving my head now. Oh, thank you for that. Thank you for that. That was a great release. Oh, so oh dear, a great release. Anyway, sorry, I'll just stop talking. Yeah, the ganglia did fall off. Anyway, this I'm all discombobulated now. So this episode was transformative for me. Obviously, for the reasons I have previously specified. I am bummed that there won't be more Tilly, but at the same time, there are still so many people I love on the show, and they are very good about their characters, because a lot of times in Trek in the past, the characters were made to serve the plot rather than the other way around, and I don't see that in Discovery like I did in things like Next Generation and stuff like that, but especially with female characters. So I'm still really enjoying this season, even though this episode was really hard on me. So I give it can't do that. I can't do that one. I'll tell you after we're done, Dan, what I was thinking. I will give it 8 out of 7 wet ganglia. And also, I have to tell everyone that Patrick Carlin isn't with us tonight because he's doing some other stuff with friends. introducing them to season 2 of Lower Decks. And so he's not able to be with us, but he did want me to put out his thing, which was 4 out of 5 triumphant returns of David Cronenberg.
Oh, nice. I like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, I really like this episode. I personally feel like it was my favorite episode of the season so far, which, that's been a nice little roll we've been on the last couple of weeks for sure. So yeah, I related to so much of what was going on with Book and Culber and Tilly and Adira, and like all of it just felt so relevant. And then the political stuff. Like I said, I love when Star Trek gets into like the politics of the Federation and that kind of thing. So this episode just had like everything. It was made for me, right? So sorry. So yeah, man, I'm having trouble giving ratings these days because like it's like, oh, that's the best. Wait, this one's the best. Crap. So I'm just gonna give it one really nice contemplative moment sitting across from either Turina or Saroo, whoever you prefer, talking about the finer points of meditation and trying to sneak a look, even though you can't get away with it. So that's my feelings on this episode. So, yeah.
Love it.
Lots of really high ratings, a couple of the lower ratings. That's fine too. Big pot of Kelpie and tea. I like that.
God, it makes me want tea.
And 3.5 out of 5 Enterprise Snow Globe. Was that the NX-01 in the Snow Globe?
I don't think so. I think it is the 1701, but it's not 100% clear to me because they talked about it on the Ready Room. Yes, I watched that episode. I think I've made that clear. And they were talking about the making of it. And they just said the Enterprise. They didn't say which Enterprise. But it's, I feel like, because the way that snow globes work, that ship inside is only like this big, but the water and the glass magnify it, so it looks bigger.
Yeah, but it didn't feel like it had a secondary hull. I'm going to do something unprecedented here because I really want to find out now.
Oh my gosh, guys, he's going to look it up in real time. Stand by. This is exciting new things.
This might just take a moment here. So.
If it's the NX-01, that will actually make me even happier than I was before with that whole snow globe thing.
Trying to find the best look we get at it. Oh. I think it's the NX-01. Hold on.
Gosh, we need confirmation from the production team. Would somebody please get in touch with them? The production team.
Okay, well, let me move this over to a different screen. Share screen. It really looks like the NX-01 to me. Like, it doesn't look like there's a secondary hull under there.
Yeah, I just don't know. It's hard to say because the image is somewhat distorted.
It's definitely not the 1701 anyway.
Yeah. Well, in any case, it's probably the NX-01 then. Or NX-01 because it's a 0. No. Sand sculptures, yes, mandalas. Mandalas, depending on who you are.
Star Trek snow globes. Has that been done? They need to do that. Eagle Moss, get on it.
Honestly, I like snow globes a lot, and I have never had one of my very own that was, not just some dinky dollar thing that I bought for a prop for a play. So yeah, I'm gonna see what's up on Etsy. I'll bet you I can find a Star Trek snow globe on Etsy.
Oh, here we go. Okay, sorry. That is definitely the NX-01.
Yep.
There's a better picture.
Yep, you are not wrong, because those nacelles tell the tale, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. That's neat. Enterprise love. Oh, man. I still got that comment up there. Sorry. Okay. Any other ratings that I missed? Lots of people saying NXO, NXO, blah, blah, blah. Okay. All right. I think we've said all we can say about this episode. Brandi, where can people find you if they want to talk about All Is Possible or anything else Star Trek related or otherwise?
The easiest thing to do is just find me on Twitter at Brandywine12.
Excellent.
And I'm just not even going to talk about the other stuff because I'm exhausted, frankly. It's been hard on me.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you can find me on Twitter at Kurtrats, youtube.com/Kurtrats Productions. Obviously, that's where I am right now. And the Positively Trek podcast that I do with Bruce. And we're still having a lot of fun with that. So join us weekly Star Trek news and episode reviews. And every 2 weeks, book club episodes. And this coming week will be our discussion with David Mack on the final book of the Coda trilogy, Oblivion's Gate. So that was a lot of fun.
David Mack and I have the same birthday.
Oh, that's cool.
I mean, not the same year, but the same day, May 12th. We're May 12th babies.
Nice. Excellent. Well, thank you all
Cool.
so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week for future unnamed episode of Star Trek Discovery.
Actually, it's not unnamed.
Oh,
it is called The Examples.
The Examples. Interesting. Mm-hmm. All right, you heard it here first, potentially. See you all next week, and thank you for watching, and live long and prosper.